Hello. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. There must have been something in that tea or coffee, I'm not sure. Maybe. Okay. Please don't forget. Turn these to silent. Thank you very much. I've also been asked by the catering ladies that if anybody has a little bit of room in their boot for a black sack that they can dump on their way home, as long as it's not in a lay-by or somewhere. And certainly not within 20 miles of Amersham. They would be most grateful. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Our next speaker, Debbie Kennett, and Debbie will be speaking on using social media to your advantage in a one-name study. Debbie Kennett has been researching her family history for over 10 years, but has focused in particular on a study of her maiden name. I always thought it was Cruise, but Debbie says on here it's pronounced Cruise. An Anglo-Saxon surname which first appeared in North Devon in the 12th century. Debbie joined the Guild of One-Name Studies in 2006 and has been a member of the Guild's marketing subcommittee for the last 3 years. She's an enthusiastic user of Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. And as the Guild's social networking coordinator, Debbie has responsibility for running the Guild's various social media accounts. She's written 2 family history books for the History Press, which I referred to earlier, DNA and Social Net. Is it still there? Right. Oh, Debbie will convince you. But unfortunately, she's not. Did she talk? Oh, yeah, she's talking on that subject. Right. Okay. Which was published in 2011, and the Surnames Handbook, of which we have a number on the bookstall, was published in October 2012. So please give a big welcome, Debbie Kennett.
Guild accounts. The ones that we're going to be looking at in more detail this afternoon, Facebook, which is probably the most important one, LinkedIn, Google+, and YouTube. And I'm also going to be just taking a quick look at blogging. Now, social networks now have an enormous reach. It's estimated that 1 in 4 people worldwide use one form of social network or another. And social media have now overtaken pornography as the #1 activity on the internet. The first site we're going to be looking at is Facebook, And the numbers, I think, speak for themselves. There are now 1.15 billion active Facebook users in the world. And when we say active, that means people are logging into their Facebook account at least once a month. And when you think the population of the world is 7 billion, you've got a seventh of the world's population all on one website. If Facebook were a country, it would actually be the third largest country in the world. There are only two countries, India and China, that have populations of over a billion. And Facebook is actually banned in China, so that makes those figures even more incredible. And it's also banned in a few other countries, probably in Syria and North Korea as well. There are ways around it. People do set up virtual proxy networks and all sorts of other things so that they can use Facebook. And the people who are on Facebook, they are generally very active users. 699 million of those people log on to Facebook at least every day. And also, a lot of them are using Facebook with mobile devices, with smartphones or with iPads or whatever. And it's not just one of these sites where it's the Americans have adopted and no one else has. 80% of Facebook users are actually outside the US and Canada. In the UK, the population, it was just announced this week, we now have 63.7 million people in the UK, and about 84% of adults have now used the internet. About 42.52 million adults have used the internet. There are now 33 million people using Facebook as of the end of 2012, so that's over half of the UK population are now on Facebook. Now, in the past, as Rodney was talking about this morning, the way of getting your surname distributions was by using things like telephone directories or the electoral register. If you can get hold of the old info disc, then that's fine. You get a good representation of the population as it was in 2001. It's much more difficult to get the representation of today. And there are now only 26 million people who are in the edited version of the electoral register for 2012, because so many people now opt out. And the other classic way of doing distribution of surnames in the past was by doing counts in telephone directories. That is no longer really a very satisfactory option, because so many people now opt out. And also so many people now have mobile phones and they're not in any directory at all. So there are now only just 17 million people in the online directories. So in terms of reach, you actually get more people on Facebook than on any other website and via any other medium. Age is no boundary to Facebook use. This lady, Lily Strugnall, she celebrated her 109th birthday just earlier on this week. And she only started using Facebook at the age of 106. So there is no excuse if anyone says they can't use Facebook. I would say that you can. The main ways that we use Facebook, I'll just run through them briefly now. First of all, the most important way is finding living people. Because of just the sheer numbers of people who are on Facebook, if you're trying to find someone, you can almost guarantee that if they're not on Facebook, they will likely have their son or their daughter or their aunt or uncle or next door neighbour. But of course, it's easier to find people if they have unusual names. If you're looking for John Smith, you don't know much about him, you wouldn't stand a chance. But if people have got an unusual forename or an unusual surname and combined with the other information they provide, it's usually quite easy to find them. Facebook can also be used to send messages to people once you've logged onto the site, so it's a way of just contacting people that you've located. It's also a way of obtaining information about people for your one-name study. It's surprising the amount of information that people provide about themselves. And it's just a useful way of keeping up with your friends and family. You can use it for sharing photos, videos. If you see an interesting news story, you can share those links with your friends and your family. And it can also be a good way of keeping up with news from the genealogy world. And there are also lots of discussion groups that you can join on Facebook. There's a growing number of genealogy discussion groups now, and also the surname mapping group that was mentioned this morning. How many people are actually on Facebook here, just as a matter of interest? So it's probably about 50%, I would say. Right. Okay, well, I'm just going to run through the mechanics of setting up a Facebook account and just going through the sort of privacy controls, so that I hope to give you just a rough idea of how it works. I obviously can't cover every eventuality, but I just want to give you a sort of overview of what you can and can't do. So when you sign up to Facebook, you will have to provide an email address and a password, and you obviously have to have a name, and you're asked to provide your gender and your month, day, and year of birth. You can go back, and you don't have to make all that information publicly available. There's all sorts of options to hide whatever you don't want to appear. And they don't actually make any checks, so people can actually just make up birth dates and birth years if you're particularly concerned about privacy. And Facebook is actually free to use as well, I should just mention. Now, one of the disadvantages of being a free site is that the money has to come from somewhere, and that money tends to come from advertising. And to make Facebook useful for advertisers, they need people to provide information that the advertisers can use. So because of that, the Facebook privacy settings are probably set at a level that perhaps most people may not feel necessarily comfortable with, because they're trying to get you to share that information. The more information you share, the more contacts you'll make with other people, but also the more information you'll provide about the demographics that the advertisers want to have access to. So I would recommend you, if you are concerned about privacy, you should always make sure that you check the privacy settings regularly and make sure that they are at levels that you feel comfortable with. You can, I'll just show you here, that little gear symbol there, that is the controls for all the Facebook settings. All the social networks now seem to have that same gear symbol for their settings. So that's something you need to keep checking on a fairly regular basis. But once you do actually go into these settings, you can actually lock the whole thing down so that you aren't exposing very much in the way of personal information at all, but it's entirely your choice. So here, these are the settings that I'm using. I've only allowed most of my stuff to be visible to people that I'm friends with. So when you're friends with someone on Facebook, it means you're connected to them. You've actually accepted their invitation to connect. But you can, if you want, you can have this set so that it's visible to the public. Some people may want to do that, or you can have it set to friends of friends. Or if you're really paranoid, you can only have things visible just to yourself. But there's not really much point in doing that. There is an activity log, and that actually allows you to go back and review all the things that you've posted on Facebook at an individual level to make sure that you've that you haven't actually revealed anything you don't want to reveal. And I've also showed here you can actually go back and limit the audience for your past posts as well. In fact, I found I have to keep doing this. I thought I got my privacy settings the way I wanted, and I still found that there were things that I had posted that I hadn't expected had been public. They keep changing everything all the time, and it can be very difficult to keep up with it sometimes. You can also set the controls for who can contact you and who can send you a friend request. And you can even block people if you want to. So if you've an ex-husband or ex-wife that you really don't want to see again, you can actually block individuals with their email address or by their name. There is a Facebook directory where you can just look people up by name, or you can search for people by email address. And if you prefer, you can also shut that down. I've actually made myself accessible for all types of searching on there. The other set of settings are for the timeline and tagging. The timeline is a profile page where all your posts appear. And these are just the settings that I've used. I've just got most things set so that only friends can access most of the things that I've posted. And tagging is when, say if someone posts a picture of you, and actually put your name on the picture and identify you in the picture. And I've got that set so that I'm notified if people tag me, and then I can decide whether or not I want to add that to my own account. And it also tells you when people have mentioned you by name. So if someone does publish something inappropriate about you, then you can always ask them to remove it. Now this little button here, View As, is a very, very useful feature on Facebook. What it does, it allows you to look at your profile, I'll just show you here, as other people see it. Because the thing that people often find confusing about Facebook is what you see is not necessarily what other people see. So let me show you on mine. You can actually view this as the public sees your profile. You can also view it as one of your friends would see your page. So this is me. This is my public profile. If you weren't connected to me on Facebook, this is what you would see about me. Because I've got most of it locked down. I've only got a picture of myself as a baby. I've only got my very basic information that I'm female, and I just put a few links to my main website. So I could actually also remove that information as well. But if you were connected to me, you would actually see a lot more. You could be able to see pictures, you'd be able to see the posts that I make, you'd be able to see who I was friends with. So it's actually a huge difference. I mean, it really depends entirely up to you as to what you want to make available. But I just want to make sure that people aren't making things available that they don't want to be made available. One of the things that you can do on Facebook, you can use it to search for people. This is a search I did for the surname Cruz. I'm not connected to these people in any way at the moment, but you can see the sort of information they've provided about themselves. Some people, I think, are providing information unwittingly they've probably never made any attempt to adjust their privacy settings. But when you do a search, it's not actually, you can't scrape the data. There's no easy way to extract all the data. You just have to keep going through and clicking more and more and more and just going through all the names. But if you're trying to gather data about people, this can be a very good way of finding that data. And you'll find a lot of people will reveal their date of birth, they will reveal where they're working, where they live. The one caveat, of course, is that people don't always provide accurate information. Some people just for a laugh will say that they live in a different place altogether, or they won't put the right age. But correlating that with data from other sources, you can usually get a pretty good idea of whether or not you've got the right person. And you can see here, if you want to connect with people, you have to just click on the button and you add them as a friend, and they have to approve your request to be accepted as a friend. And once they've done that, then that opens up the profiles to each person. Even if you're not connected to a person, you can still send them a message on Facebook. Now, with all the social networks, there is essentially two different views. You've got the sort of profile view, which is the one I showed you earlier. And then you've got the page that you see whenever you sign into your account. This is what I screenshot I did the other day of my own account, and this is what is called a news feed. So you get the posts they all appear in chronological order with the most recent posts first, and I get posts from my friends here, but also if I follow companies or organisations, then their posts would also appear on this page. And you can see that people can comment on posts. There's a little comment at the bottom there, and there's also a button where you can like posts. So it's actually quite nice if you are on Facebook and someone's posted something that you like. It's quite nice just to click the like button just to show that you're still around and you've read what they've posted. One of the very useful aspects for genealogy on Facebook are all the discussion groups. We have a group for the Guild. There are 3 different types of group on Facebook. You can have a public group, you can have a closed group, which is what the Guild group is, or you can have a secret group. With a closed group, any messages posted in the group are not visible to the members of the public. you only see those messages when you join the group. So that's in contrast to the forum, the Roots web mailing list, where the archives are actually open to the public. So if you did want to join the group, this is what you would see if you hadn't yet joined the group. You just see a brief description of the group, and then you can see the join group button on the right there, and then your request has to be approved. We have to check you in the register, and then once you're in the group, you would see all the messages that are in the group. So Morris here is the list there, because he did one of the most recent posts. And you can see it's actually a slightly different format from mailing lists. The posts tend to be quite visual, because if you include a link in your post, you often get a picture that's associated with it. So it's actually a different way of viewing things. I would say it's complementary to the Roots web mailing list. The Facebook groups are better for sharing links, sharing sort of recent news stories, but it's much more difficult to search the archives in a Facebook list, and it's more difficult to have lengthy discussions about subjects. But the other nice thing about the Facebook groups is you can upload photos. So maybe if someone's taken a photo here, we might find that photo gets uploaded to the Facebook group later on today. If it hasn't already been done so, Alan's probably posted a photo. Oh, right, okay. And you can also share files as well. You don't have to worry about posting your messages in plain text and all that sort of business that you have to worry about on the Roots web. The aspect that I find most useful for a one-name study is to use these genealogy groups to make connections with other researchers. So I've got groups set up for all my different variant spellings. In fact, you can see on the left there, those are the list of just some of the groups that I've either set up or I've joined. Cruz is actually a very rare surname. I did try message boards and mailing lists to try and get people together, and none of those had any effect. But this group has now been going for, I don't know, about 3 or 4 years, and I've now got 163 people in that group, which I think is pretty good going for a very rare surname. And it's a mixture. I sometimes put posts in the group just to make sure everyone's still there, and then other people come along and they post messages. So I recently had someone joining the group, and then a few other people came along and welcomed them. So you do get general inquiries, but it also just provides you with a way of just keeping in touch with people. And the other thing I find is on Facebook, it's much easier. I'm always getting people who change their email address, and they forget to tell you where they are. And Facebook has come to my rescue on a number of occasions when I've been able to contact them on Facebook when all other methods of communication have failed. They've moved their email address, or their emails are just not getting through to them, but I always manage to get hold of them on Facebook. Now the other feature on Facebook are the pages. Pages are different from groups. They are essentially a one-way broadcast medium that are used by companies and organisations to help get their message out. And we also have a page for the Guild. We now have, at the last count, it was 1,685 people following our page. But what's interesting is that most of the people who follow our page are not members. We've got about 300 members following the page. I don't know the exact number. And all the others are non-members. So it's a way of us helping to get word out about the Guild and helping to raise awareness of the Guild. So the messages that are posted in there are a mixture of messages that are relevant for one-name studies, news posts about the Guild, and just sort of general family history items of interest. Because if we publish interesting stories, they get picked up by other people and they get shared, so that helps to get the Guild name known. So one of the posts that was most popular recently was, I did one about the BBC had a news story about Prince George's birth certificate. And so I shared that and the fact that he had no surname. And that was one that got shared and it got seen by thousands and thousands of people. So if you wanted to follow the Guild page, all you have to do, you can see the like button there. Once you click the like button, then any news items that appear on the Guild's news page then appear in your news feed. We also get a very nice facility from Facebook to access some statistics on the people who view our page. So I just thought I'd show you this because it gives you an idea of the demographics of Facebook. And what's interesting, I think this is probably a representation of genealogists as a whole on Facebook, but 63% of the people following our page are females. And you can also see that the bulk of the followers are in the sort of 45 to 65 age band. We have very, very few followers under 35. It also gives you listings by country. The United Kingdom is top of the list, but the United States is the next largest. And another interesting feature of that is that we actually have more members, more people following us in the United States on Facebook than we actually have members in the United States. So I hope that's something that we can eventually change. But the Facebook page is a way of us increasing awareness of our name and what we're doing in the United States and in all these other countries. You can see just by the list there, it reaches out to all sorts of countries you'd never get to by any other means. There are a couple of regional Guild pages. There's one for Essex and one for Gloucestershire that Gerald has set up. So if you're in one of those regions, you might like to follow their pages, because they can obviously focus on more local issues, whereas with the main Guild page, we've got to be aware that we've got a very worldwide audience, and they're not necessarily going to be interested in very parochial events in Gloucestershire or Essex. I'm now going to move on and look at Google+, which is the next largest social network. This is a very new one. It was only established in 2011, and it is actually the fastest growing social network ever, but that's largely because it was able to leverage all the people who are already on the other social networks. It's supposed to have 500 million users, and 343 million of those are supposed to be active users, but it doesn't seem to be anywhere near as active or vibrant as Facebook is. It also has a very severe gender imbalance. 71% of the users are male. So if you contrast that with the statistics on Facebook, where we had the majority of our followers were female. So this can reach a slightly different audience. I think that's also largely because of the way Google was launched. It was first launched by the sort of techie, nerdy people, and they're the ones who... and they're the ones who adopted it first. But there are also lots of people like photographers on Google Plus who use it to showcase their photography work. Google Plus works pretty much in the same way as Facebook. You have a profile page. This is my public profile page here. And rather than making friends with people, you add them to your circles, and people can add you to their circles. And again, you've got you can set all the privacy settings and decide what you want to be made available to the public. All these sites, they try and encourage you to add all sorts of extra information, education work, most of which I don't bother with. But it's up to you as to what you want to include. And then you also get a news feed. This is what in Google it's called a stream, just to be different. They redesigned this recently, and I don't like this new design with lots of aesthetic white space, and it wobbles around all over the place. But no doubt that will be redesigned again and will be improved again. And this works on the same principle again. Everyone that you put in your circles, whenever they make a post, you get to see their post in your stream. You can also search for people with your surname on Google+. So this is just a search I did for Cruise again. It's actually easier to search for people on Google+, but the downside is that a lot of people on Google+ don't seem to have provided much in the way of information. All you get is a name and a photo, and a lot of people have just set up accounts and they haven't actually done much with the accounts themselves. One thing I meant to mention was, you can see at the top here, this toolbar. So, in fact, whether or not you use a Google Plus account, Google is actually a very nice way of coordinating all your Google accounts in one place. So if you sign into Google Plus, then you can easily access the image search, YouTube, if you use Gmail, and the calendar and all the other Google features. They're all on one page rather than having to have lots of separate bookmarks. Yeah. And on Google Plus, we also have pages in the same way as we have on Facebook. We have a page for the Guild on Facebook. So if you on Google Plus, so if you do join Google Plus, make sure you set up that you choose to follow our page. But the main thing I wanted to focus on with Google Plus were the Hangouts, which are actually the most useful feature of Google Plus and something that we've actually used a lot of within the Guild. And the Hangouts are essentially it's a video chat service. It's a way of having a phone conversation with someone, but also you've got the combination with the video. And as well as being able to have a one-to-one conversation, you can actually have up to 10 people in a Hangout all at the same time. So within the Guild, we normally have Hangouts once every month. It's normally the third Saturday of every month. There's one at 9:30 on a Saturday morning, which picks up the Australians, and then there's another one at 4:30 in the afternoon, which picks up the Americans. So we can have members in England, Spain, America, and Canada all in a virtual room together, and all able to have a conversation. The other very useful feature of the Hangouts is that you can have screen shares. So if you wanted to you could actually do a presentation on Google Hangouts, and if you wanted to show someone a particular aspect of, say, a family history program, or if you wanted to give someone some help with Excel, you can share your screenshots in Hangout, and you can actually talk while you're explaining to the other person how to use it. All the Guild Hangouts are recorded, and they're all uploaded onto YouTube. If you go back and look at some of the Hangouts, you'll be able to see some of the presentations that have been done in the past. So Bob, for instance, did a very nice one on French records, which was in one of the recent Hangouts. I'm not going to go through all the mechanics of how to get started with Google+. There is a very helpful page in the members' room that one of our members, Neville Broadbent, wrote. I've put the link in the handout, and that's got all the instructions. Basically, all you need is, most laptops tend to have a built-in webcam, or you can just buy your own. They don't cost very much to buy. You may need a set of headsets, and again, they don't cost very much. And then once you've got that, as well as using it for the Guild, you can use it with friends and family. If you want to have conversations with friends and family all over the world, it's just completely free. And it's an amazing service. Just a few words about YouTube, which is where the Hangouts are stored. I'm sure everyone knows that YouTube is the video website. You can just go to YouTube and you put a search engine, put words into the search engine box and just search for videos that might be of interest. But it's worthwhile setting up the YouTube account, because once you've set up an account, you can then subscribe to various channels. And you can see some of the channels that I've subscribed to on the left there. And then when you log into your account, you then also get a news feed like this with all the recent videos that the people you're following have posted. So, for instance, here you can see Tessa in America has done some really nice videos on how to use Excel, how to start a one-name study in America, and she's also nice videos about our competition. So although every time you check in, you would see that the latest videos in your news feed. And also you can save, if you like any particular videos, you can save them as favourites, so then you can actually go back and check your favourite videos from time to time. We have a new Guild YouTube channel. So if you are on YouTube and you sign up to an account, make sure you follow our YouTube channel. And you'll find on the YouTube channel, as well as all the Hangout videos, you'll find the videos about competition, And you'll also find the recordings of the last two conferences, so you can go and check all those out. And you can see we've also got, we've highlighted some channels from some of our members who provided some particularly useful information. Morris, who's here today, has done some nice videos on DNA. Tessa, as I mentioned earlier, has done some excellent videos on all aspects of one-name studies, and also legacy software, which she uses a lot. Tony Timmins has done some, I believe he's done videos on Outlet Hub, which we mentioned earlier, which is one of these scrapers, so it's worth looking at his channel too. And while I just wanted to mention a few words about the competition. You can see we've got a very boring set of logos on our page here. One of the things we're hoping is that people are going to send in nice photos for the competition that we can use on all these various social media outlets, as well as on the website and elsewhere. The closing date of the competition has now been extended. For some reason, people did not receive the chairman's news flash. They did not read the messages on the forum. They did not read messages posted in Facebook and Google Plus and Twitter. We don't know what we're doing wrong, but a lot of people didn't seem to read those initial messages. So now it's been extended, and the competition will be closing at the end of on the 30th of August. Everyone who enters the competition will win a prize of a free genealogy course, and there are some really good prizes. There are a couple of 37 marker DNA test kits and family tree DNA, and there's also a FitPal scanner. So all you have to do is try and take a few nice photos, some drawings, get your friends and family to do some drawings, or just come up with some nice words, just some taglines, or just tell us a few things about why you like the Guild. Now, the next network we're moving on to is LinkedIn, which is a networking website for people looking for jobs or looking to network with other people in their particular field. This was launched in 2003. It's taken a while to get going. It has 225 million users in 200 different countries. 11 million of those are in the UK, and it's a fairly even gender balance. All these sites, they tend to have slightly different mixes of people. So if you are desperately looking for one particular person, you can't find them on Facebook, you can't find them on Google+, you may just find them on LinkedIn. It's just a question of remembering the demographics. This is my own profile page on LinkedIn. I don't tend to provide a great deal of information on there, but if you are really looking for a job, you may want to provide a lot more information. This is the only service that charges any money. Most people use it free of charge, but if you want to, you can pay for the premium service, and you can do extra things like who's viewed your profile page. How many people are on LinkedIn as a matter of interest here? Oh, so that's about a third. I forgot to ask about Google+. How many are on Google+? Why is there a divide? All that side of the room are on Google+, and hardly anyone on that side. Don't you like each other? Oh, right. Yeah. Right. Well, there are also lots of genealogists on LinkedIn, and there are lots of groups on LinkedIn that you can use. There are quite a few genealogy groups on there. And groups for companies. So even if you did belong to a company in the past, you can still join the group for that company. You can also look for people on LinkedIn. This is my search for crews. So again, this, depending on what you're looking for, this could provide different information that you can use in your one-name study. And again, you can use this as a messaging service, and you can connect with people on LinkedIn, and once you're connected with them, you can actually see a more detailed profile. With none of these sites actually make it easy to extract one-name data, so you can actually search and you get all this data, but there's no easy download button. So if you're doing a large one-name study, if I was Chris Gray, I don't think you'd ever be able to get much from these social network sites, but with a smaller surname, it's a viable proposition. We have a guild group on LinkedIn which you can join. It's not a particularly active group. It serves as a discussion group. But if you do join the group, then you can actually feature that group on your profile page. So it's a way of helping to advertise the guild. And this is open to both members and non-members. So we do sometimes get non-members coming in to say hello and just ask about various things. And the final site I'm going to cover is Twitter, which I'm sure everyone has heard of. How many people are on Twitter here? Oh, it's more than it's more than I thought, actually. It's 550 million registered users, but a lot of people, like Gordon, they sign up for an account and then they don't use it, and they're completely baffled by it. It's one of these, I would say, of all the networks, it's probably the one that's got the steepest learning curve, and some people love it, some people hate it. And with all the social networks, everyone has their own preferences. Some people love Facebook, there are other people who much prefer Google+, and other people just feel happy on Twitter. So it's entirely what you feel comfortable with. There are apparently more females on Twitter than there are males, and it tends to be quite a young user base as well. People always think about Twitter as being celebrities talking about, what they've eaten for supper and all the rest. There are lots of celebrities on Twitter. If that's what you're into, then you can follow all the celebrities. These are the top 8 UK celebrities on Twitter. I'd never even heard of some of these names before I looked at this list. They all seem to be people on talent shows that I've never watched, like X Factor and Britain's Got Talent and the like. Emma Watson I do recognise, who's the Harry Potter star. Stephen Fry, obviously I would imagine most people know him. But what the interesting thing to notice about the figures here is the number of followers that these people have. So Stephen Fry, who's a very well-known name on Twitter, has 6 million followers. Now if you just put that in context, 6 million is probably the audience of, say, a top 10 programme on the BBC. If you watch Who Do You Think You Are, there are probably not even 6 million people watching Who Do You Think You Are. He has got that massive power to reach out to 6 million people with any message that he posts on there. And it's not just celebrities. There's obviously lots of news sites. The BBC Breaking News site is the top-rated UK site. On a global scale, there are 3 celebrities vying for the top spot. There is Justin Bieber, a Canadian singer, Katy Perry, another singer who was married to Russell Brand, I believe, and Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga was at number 1 and she's now got to number 3 for some reason. But they all have in the region of 40 million followers on Twitter, and which is just a phenomenal number. And the number 4 is Barack Obama. He's got, I think it's 34 million the last time I looked. And his use of social media was actually attributed with him winning the last 2 presidential elections. And David Cameron, I think when I last looked, only had a few 100,000 followers. And I forgot to look for Tony Blair, I'm afraid, or Gordon Brown. This is just to give you an idea of the sort of post that you would see. This is the BBC Breaking News website. Most news these days breaks first on Twitter. All the journalists now have to be on Twitter. They pick up contacts on Twitter. They pick up news on Twitter. This is, you can see the sort of posts that are made here. The posts are restricted to 140 characters, but a large number of posts on Twitter consist of words, but also links. So the words tempt you to click on the link, and then you read the full story when you access the link. And in the genealogy world, it's actually a very good way of keeping up with all the news in the genealogy world. And again, if any news of new websites or whatever, it tends to break first on Twitter, and also to a certain extent on Facebook. We have a guild Twitter account. These are the recent tweets on Twitter here. Just to show you at the bottom here, this is what we call a retweet. When you have an account, if you see something that someone else has posted that you think is of interest to your followers, you can retweet it, which is a way of sharing their post with your followers. And the more that messages are retweeted, the wider the audience they reach, and some messages can actually have a phenomenal impact. You also get suggestions of people to follow. Once you start following a few people, you get suggestions of more names to follow, and you can also look at the trending topics here. I don't know what was going on the day when I looked. Retro glam. Yes, some of these are promoted. I've no idea what Find UK Believers is. There must have been some religious cult on Twitter on that particular day, but it can often be interesting just looking at the trending topics on there, and sometimes you just pick up news. I remember Amy Winehouse, when she died, I noticed her name was trending. I clicked on that and suddenly realised that she died. That was the way I picked up news of her death. And a lot of things tend to happen that way. This is my stream on Twitter. This is what I see when I log into Twitter every time, and you can see Simon at the top of the list there. Is he still here? He was tweeting about looking forward to coming today, and all the various other messages that I got there. I've ended up following large numbers of people. It's impossible to read every single tweet. What I tend to do is dip in and out of Twitter every now and then, and I also have favourite lists, and then I can just, certain people I know who tend to post the most interesting things, I can just look at what they've posted. And you can also sign up for a newsletter which gives you the top tweets every day, and that tends to pick up all the really popular things. Once something gets retweeted lots of times, then it appears as a popular post, and then those are the sort of things that turn up in your newsletter. Now I'm just going to move on to the last subject, which are blogs. These are generally considered as one type of social media because it's another interactive medium, which I'll explain a bit later. They're also a very easy alternative to having a website. They're very easy to use, completely free. You can publish things to the web instantly. You don't have to worry about deadlines as you would if you were publishing something like a newsletter. The one nice thing about the blogs is you can also schedule your posts, so that if you happen to have a free week, you can then write lots of posts, and then you can schedule them so that they go out once a week. You can upload pictures, and you can also customize the blogs and add all sorts of gadgets and widgets and whatever else takes your fancy. And blogs, every blog post that you write, it creates a new page, and each page gets indexed separately by the search engines. So they're a very good way of reaching out to a wide audience, and blog posts actually get ranked very highly in the Google search engines. So it's a good way of reaching out to a large audience. It's also with a blog and a website, it saves you all the work of chasing people down, because you put the information out there, people find your messages and they come to you. How many people have blogs who are here today? I know Teresa does. Well, pretty good. That side of the room is much more tech savvy than the right side, isn't it? Anyone who can type, who can use Word, who can send emails and post attachments to emails, can edit a blog. This is just one where I've already done a post and I'm going back and editing it. It uses what's called a WYSIWYG interface. What you see is what you get. You literally type in your words. You've got a little toolbar across the top there. You can see there, look. So all you do, you highlight a word, and then you can change the font, you can change the text, you can make things bold, italics. You can add hyperlinks, and it's just so easy to do. If you want to add a picture, you just click on the picture icon, upload a picture from the file, and it automatically appears on your page. When you're ready, you can preview it if you want, you can update it, or you just click on publish, and then it's immediately out there for everyone to see. And of course, if you make a mistake, as I'm always doing, as soon as I publish something, I find something I've got wrong, you can just easily go back and change it. And you can also go back and change old posts as well if you want to. But the interactive part of blogs comes from the facility to add comments. So these are just some comments that I've got on one of my posts. And in fact, Andrew, one of our guild members, has commented here, and then other people have come along and commented, and then you can add your own comments and replies. So you can sometimes have quite a nice little dialogue with your readers. You do get a few spammers sometimes trying to come along and add posts, but you can easily delete those. And what I find as well is that sometimes things I posted perhaps 3-4 years ago, I still get people coming along reading those because that particular page showed up when they're searching for a particular person, and then they come along and they add comments, and I can then get in touch with them. And if you do set up a blog, it's also useful to keep track of the people who come and visit your page. There are built-in stats that you can use with the blogging platforms. I also use this stat counter. There's also Google Analytics that you can use. I just happened to start using stat counter before Google Analytics came along. And this allows me to see who has, on a sort of page-by-page basis, who's accessed my pages. And sometimes you can even see the search engine results they've used to reach your page. And in some cases here you can see the university in the story. You can even identify where the institution was. I was a bit concerned yesterday. I had a visit from the FBI on one of my web pages. And I get the criminal justice system. But they haven't been back, luckily. If you are thinking of doing a blog, I would suggest the best way to get started is to look to see what other people have done. I just put up a few samples here of other one-name blogs. There is a list in the wiki, and I put it on the handout, of blogs run by guild members. The two main blogging platforms are WordPress. Two blogs on the left, the Cavers blog and the Grono blog, are using WordPress. And the other one on the right is Google Blogger, which is the Swinfield blog and the Sterry blog. That's the one that I use. Blogger tends to be, is probably the easiest one to use, but if you're more techie and you want to do lots more customization, then WordPress is perhaps the one to use. They all provide you with built-in templates, and you can see that the WordPress blogs have got a particular feel, and the Google blogs have got a particular feel, but you can change the background and you can customize all the headings and which links you want to appear on the right, and also change the colors to suit your particular preferences. And there's obviously only a limit as to what I can. So just to say, as been mentioned before, I've got the two books. In the networking book, I did go into much more detail about things like wikis, which I haven't been able to cover here. And the surnames book is essentially how to do a one-name study, but covering things like surname mapping and also DNA testing as well. So just to sum up, Facebook is probably now an essential tool for a one-name study, but there are lots of other social networking websites that you can use, and they all reach different audiences. Whichever you use, make sure you check your privacy settings on a regular basis. All the sites are free, so why don't you give them a try?
That was excellent, Debbie. Thank you very, very much indeed. One of the uses of Twitter, which many of you may or may not be familiar with, I've just asked Debbie to go back very quickly to one of the main pages, Debbie, which is the next one, isn't it? Where it I need the @ bit, the handle. That's it. That's
that one. Right.
Okay, right. One of the things that I found very, very useful, and I use Twitter. I run a Twitter feed for a Rotary district. And I was at a presentation very similar to the one we listened to today. And something that was mentioned, which I thought was absolutely fabulous, and I've used it several times since. Do you remember the days when you had a complaint about a retailer or somebody that supplies you with your electricity or gas or whatever, and you write a long screed off to the managing director, if you can even find the name of that person, or even find the address these days, and you do not get a response. You might get something that says, thank you very much, basically, your stuff's been binned. However, if you use Twitter, and you use the, not this one obviously, where it says at what does it say up there, at Guild or whatever it says up there. If you have a complaint, for example, my wife had a complaint with Marks and Spencer. I had a complaint with our bank, not a confidential complaint, just a general complaint. And you find out what their Twitter handle is, which is the at NatWest or at Marks and Spencer or at such and such a gas board. And I can tell you something. You write a very short synopsis of your complaint within those 140 characters, and I can tell you, you will get a response within an hour, if not quicker. They have people sitting there watching, because this information. You look at M&S or somebody, they've got, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of followers. And that information about a problem is going to all those people, and they want that cleared up pretty quickly. So that, to me, was an excellent use of Twitter. And the other point I'd like to make is one of the problems that I think that a lot of people are very frightened of using social media, particularly Facebook, because they think it's all about teenagers doing all sorts of wonderful things, or perhaps not so wonderful as far as their parents are concerned, and that's what Facebook is all about. Debbie has shown us today that that is not what Facebook's about. Facebook is a very, very good communication tool, and she has shown us today how it can be used in a genealogical situation. So thank you for that. Are there any questions? Right.
Go back to. Yes, so if you just type in Guild of One Name Studies in the search box, and that will you can just search for anything in that search box, and that will show you various things associated with the guild. It will probably show up the page as well. You can actually restrict searches, so you can search for people, you can search for groups, you can search for pages. There are actually there are loads and loads of genealogy groups that you can search for, so, or anything that you're interested in, whether it's, sort of cars or aeroplanes or anything. There's groups for all sorts of things on here.
Any other questions?
Right, the hashtag, let me see if I can, right, Twitter. I've got any examples of hashtags. Oh, right, yes, okay. Right, well, hashtags are normally used to keep related tweets together. They're particularly useful if there's a growing trend now for, say, people going to conferences to tweet from conferences. So if you were going to, say Roots Tech, which is a big conference, there were lots of tweets from Roots Tech, people would use the hashtag Roots Tech, and then anyone wanting to search on hashtag Roots Tech would then see all the tweets coming out of Roots Tech, all grouped together on one page. So it's a way of searching.
You could also put hashtag your name as well. Use your name as a hashtag, yeah? And if there's been any postings regarding a certain surname, I'm not talking about John Smith, but I mean, if you have a relatively unusual surname, which most of the people sat in this room probably have, you could put a hashtag from that surname, and that will bring up any postings connected with that surname.
Well, you can just do an ordinary search. You don't need to put the hashtag in to get the results for anything.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I think we can move over now to any general questions that people might have at all. We have a question.
I've been asked by a television station to allow them access to a microphone. I've been asked by a television station for access to webcam and microphone, which incidentally I don't have. But if I had, what would be the major problems?
Sorry, is this relating to One Name Study?
Bob, did you get that question? Perhaps Bob could answer that. All right. Right. Would you very succinctly repeat the question, please?
generally in reference to communication and security, I've in the past been asked for permission to have access to my microphone and webcam by a television station. What are the implications, please?
I don't understand why a television station would ask for access to a webcam and microphone. In what context? But they don't want you to appear on the programme. Why? I don't understand the question, I'm afraid. I've never come across...
I've never seen that scenario with a TV station, but in general, someone's trying to connect to your computer, and they're asking for your permission for them to have control over, or at least be able to view you via your webcam and computer. So unless you're happy with that, say no.
It sounds like it might be a scam.
Yeah. I think I'd be inclined personally to keep away from that, but anyway. Do we have some more general questions from the floor?
It sounds like the
Sorry,
website of the
over
TV
here.
station has been hacked and someone's, yeah. Right, so it wasn't somebody emailing you from the TV station. Right, no, it sounds like you... No, it sounds like it's a scam. I would just ignore it. If the TV station wants to get in touch with you, then they will do. And even if they do get in touch with you, most of the time you waste your time finding information for them, and it goes absolutely nowhere. I've had a few experiences of that in the past.
In the past, I found it very useful to look at the surname forums on Ancestry for Morecambe. And most of the questions that come up there are very sensible and useful. I wonder whether other people have found that those forums are becoming far less popular recently. Is this because people are going over to social media?
Yes, it is, yes. There's been a general decline in the Roots Web message lists, and all the Ancestry and Roots Web message boards. The number of posts has gone down considerably. The Goons mailing list is probably the exception. There's a few DNA mailing lists that I belong to that are very active, but in general, a lot of people have migrated to the various social media.
In my complete ignorance, I've hesitated going on to Facebook instead, because I suspect I may get a lot of queries of the type, tell me all you know about my walk.
No, not at all, no. No.
Thank you. Anybody else? This is your opportunity. Any general genealogical questions? One name study questions?
Any questions about the competition?
No?
How many people are going to be sending an entry for the competition?
Okay, well, I think it's been quite a long day today, and that we've also been sitting in quite a warm, well, fairly warm room. So, Dominic, would you like to say something?
It's a really exciting part of the day. Those of you that have been in attendance since Colebrookdale know that I now say, could I have volunteers, please, to take home bags of rubbish and put them in your waste bin?
We've already mentioned that, and we've told them we don't want anybody within 10 miles of Amersham dumping it anywhere, particularly in the local authority waste bins, but yes, they could take it home if they wish.
It's all stuff that can actually go into your normal waste bin. I've taken all the paper and the card, and it's going into my waste bin, unless anybody else wants it. So there's only 7 bags this time. I don't want anybody to send me an email saying how disappointed they are. I have had them. Believe me.
There we go. Okay, there we go. Thank you for that, Dominic. That was really just what we wanted for the end of the seminar. Okay, it remains for me to thank the speakers. Thank you very much. I think we'd all like to thank all 4 of our speakers today. I should have kept Dominic back, really, because I'd like to thank the caterers as well. Thank you for those that have brought stands with you. They've been quite interesting. I'm sure a lot of you have benefited from looking at them. I'd particularly like to thank my colleagues on the SEM subcommittee who have actually organised this today. They took over the organisation some time ago when I was struggling with a lot of other things that had taken my attention. So thank you to my SEMSUC colleagues for organising the seminar today. When you're leaving, please remove your lanyards and badges, leave them in the box outside, and also complete the questionnaire, because it is extremely useful for the planning of future seminars. Have a very safe journey home, and hopefully we'll see you at the next seminar, which is on Saturday the 16th of November at the National Archives, and it is the Colonial Sources Seminar. Thank you very much for coming, because you can't run a seminar without an audience. Thank you.